Would you stop for a stranger in the rain? Victor Delgado did. He didn't know her name, or the story she carried, but as he reached for the handles of her wheelbarrow, he set in motion a chain of events that would challenge everything Rosewood believed about kindness, identity, and what it means to be truly rich. What if a single act of kindness could change the course of an entire community? Have you ever looked at someone and thought you knew their story, only to discover you were completely wrong? Have you ever been surprised by the hidden depths of a person you thought you understood? Sometimes, the most extraordinary truths are hidden beneath the surface, waiting for a moment of compassion to bring them to light. Hello, Grand Aura family. Marcus here, your storyteller, ready to whisk you away to a place where hearts connect and lives transform. If you're new here, welcome. You've just stumbled upon a channel dedicated to stories that stir the soul and leave you pondering long after the credits roll. And to my loyal subscribers, thank you for being here, for believing in the power of storytelling, and for making this community so special. Before we continue, if you haven't already, take a moment to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. That way you'll never miss a new story and you'll be supporting the channel. Also, a quick like and share would mean the world to me. In the quiet town of Rosewood, a simple act of compassion was about to reveal a secret that would challenge everything they thought they knew about wealth and worth. It was a moment that would ripple through the community, forcing everyone to question their assumptions and redefine what truly matters. What happens when a humble man, known for his generosity and willingness to lend a hand, helps an old woman with her wheelbarrow, only to discover she's a billionaire in disguise? How does such a revelation change their lives? And what lessons does it teach the town of Rosewood? This is a story about judging appearances, about the unexpected connections that can blossom in the most ordinary circumstances, and about the enduring power of kindness to transform not just individuals, but entire communities. The rain intensified, transforming the familiar streets of Rosewood into a shimmering maze of reflections. Buildings blurred into soft watercolor strokes, their outlines softened by the persistent downpour. The air, thick with the scent of wet earth and blooming honeysuckle, carried the distant chime of church bells, their melody muted yet comforting. Rosewood, usually bustling with activity, seemed to hold its breath, embracing the quiet intimacy of the storm. Victor, accustomed to the rhythms of the town, navigated the slick sidewalks with practiced ease. His worn leather boots splashed through puddles, each step a testament to his dedication to his work. He was on his way to Mrs. Gable's house to help her move a heavy antique dresser, a task he had promised to undertake despite the inclement weather. He believed in keeping his word, no matter the circumstances. As he rounded the corner of Maple, his attention was drawn to a figure struggling against the elements. An elderly woman, her frame delicate and frail, wrestled with a dilapidated wheelbarrow. The contraption, more rust than metal, groaned under the weight of an assortment of oddments. A chipped porcelain doll, a stack of yellowed books tied with twine, a tarnished silver teapot. It was a collection of memories, each object whispering stories of a life lived. Without hesitation, Victor quickened his pace. He could see the strain etched on the woman's face, the way her shoulders slumped with exhaustion. "Ma'am, are you all right? Can I offer some assistance?" He called out, his voice warm and genuine, cutting through the sound of the rain. The woman looked up, her eyes, though aged, still held a spark of resilience. A faint smile touched her lips, a mixture of gratitude and a hint of something deeper, something that tugged at Victor's heart. "Thank you, young man," she replied, her voice surprisingly clear despite the weather. "This old thing has seen better days, and I'm afraid I'm not as strong as I used to be. I would be grateful if you could help me get it home." Victor didn't need to be asked twice. He immediately took hold of the wheelbarrow, his strong hands easily maneuvering the unwieldy load. "Of course, ma'am. It would be my pleasure. Where are you headed?" "Just a few blocks from here," she said, her gaze following him as he began to push. "My name is Lillian Caldwell." "Victor Delgado," he replied, offering a polite nod. And so they began their slow journey through the rain-soaked streets. Victor adjusted his pace to match Lillian's, mindful of her age and frailty. The wheelbarrow, though still cumbersome, moved with greater ease under his guidance. As they walked, they began to converse, their words weaving a connection that transcended the simple act of assistance. Lillian spoke of her life, sharing fragments of her past, moments of joy, moments of sorrow, moments of quiet contemplation. She spoke of a lost love, a family disagreement, and the sting of betrayal by someone she had trusted. But even as she recounted these hardships, there was no bitterness in her voice, only a gentle acceptance, a quiet strength that impressed Victor. He listened intently, captivated by her stories. He was struck by her ability to find beauty in the face of adversity, to transform painful experiences into valuable lessons. She spoke of the importance of forgiveness, of finding solace in unexpected friendships, and of cherishing the simple things in life. As they passed under the old stone bridge that marked the edge of Rosewood, the sound of the rain was amplified, echoing around them like a hushed symphony. Lillian paused, gazing at the water flowing beneath. "Life is like this river, Victor," she said, her voice soft. "Always moving, always changing. Sometimes calm, sometimes turbulent, but always beautiful in its own way." Victor nodded, understanding her sentiment. He had always found solace in nature, in the quiet beauty of the world around him. He had learned to appreciate the small moments, the simple pleasures that often went unnoticed by others. If you believe in the power of kindness to connect people and transform lives, take a moment to hit the like button. Your support helps us share more stories like this one. They continued their walk, the rain gradually easing to a drizzle. As they neared Lillian's home, Victor felt a sense of contentment, a quiet satisfaction in having helped someone in need. He knew that their encounter had been more than just a chance meeting. It was a moment of connection, a reminder that even the smallest acts of compassion could have a profound impact. In that moment, the rain became a backdrop to a profound exchange. A reaffirmation that sometimes the most meaningful connections were born in the act of helping someone cross a merely wet street. The rain softened, its steady rhythm now a gentle whisper on rooftops and leaves. Victor and Lillian continued their walk, the wheelbarrow rolling more smoothly as the streets emptied and the world seemed to slow. The town's familiar sights, flower boxes on windowsills, the faded sign of the old bakery, the distant glow of lanterns, became the backdrop for a conversation that would linger in Victor's memory for years to come. Lillian's voice, though quiet, carried a certain weight. She began to share glimpses of a life that seemed at odds with her present circumstances. "There was a time," she said, "when my evenings were spent beneath the arches of grand gardens where laughter mingled with the scent of roses and the air shimmered with the promise of possibility." Her eyes sparkled with the memory, and for a moment Victor could almost see her as a young woman moving gracefully through a world of elegance and intrigue. She spoke of hushed dinners in candlelit rooms where conversations drifted from art to philosophy, and of starlit strolls along winding paths, the night air filled with music and the soft rustle of silk. Yet, as she described these scenes, there was no trace of longing or regret. Only a gentle amusement, as if she were recalling a distant play in which she had once performed a role. Victor found himself captivated by the contrast between the woman beside him and the world she described. Lillian's clothes were simple, her shoes worn, her hair pulled back in a practical knot. Yet there was an undeniable dignity in her bearing, a quiet confidence that suggested she had seen much and learned more. The contradiction was striking. A woman who moved through life with humility, yet whose words hinted at experiences far beyond the ordinary. He glanced at her, curiosity flickering in his eyes. "You speak of such places with ease, but you seem so content here in this small town." Lillian smiled, her gaze drifting to the rain-speckled pavement. "Wealth is an unfitting companion to a heart that values truth," she replied. "I have known both abundance and scarcity, Victor. I have dined with those who measured their worth in gold, and I have shared bread with those who had little but gave much. In the end, it is not the grandeur of our surroundings that defines us, but the sincerity of our actions." Her words settled over Victor like a warm blanket. He had always believed in the value of hard work and honesty, but hearing it spoken so plainly by someone who had lived on both sides of fortune gave his convictions new strength. As they walked, Lillian's stories shifted from the glittering halls of her youth to the quieter, more challenging chapters of her life. She spoke of her younger days, when she had worked in places where decisions carried weight and every choice seemed to ripple outward, affecting lives she would never meet. "There is a loneliness," she confided, "that comes with responsibility, When you are surrounded by people who want something from you, it is easy to lose sight of who you are. Victor nodded, understanding more than he could say. He had never held power or influence, but he knew what it meant to feel alone, even in a crowd. His own childhood had been marked by struggle, nights spent in a cramped room with his parents and siblings, days filled with chores and the constant worry of making ends meet. Yet, in those moments of hardship, he had also found kindness. A neighbor who shared a loaf of bread, a teacher who offered encouragement, a friend who stood by him when others turned away. Lillian listened as Victor recounted these memories, her expression softening with empathy. True richness is not in the abundance of possessions, but in the depth of one's relationships and the authenticity of one's actions, she said. I have seen people with everything, yet they are empty. And I have known those with nothing whose hearts overflowed with generosity. Victor smiled, feeling a sense of kinship with this remarkable woman. My father used to say that a man's worth is measured by the kindness he shows to others. I never understood it fully until I grew older and saw how the smallest gestures could change a person's day. They paused at a corner where a street lamp cast a golden glow on the wet pavement. The world felt suspended, as if time itself had slowed to allow their conversation to unfold. Lillian looked at Victor, her eyes shining with sincerity. It is often the simplest acts, a helping hand, a shared word, that enrich our souls far more than gold ever could. Victor considered her words, recalling the countless times he had witnessed quiet acts of generosity in Rosewood. He remembered the elderly couple who left fresh bread on his doorstep when his mother was ill, the neighbor who mended his coat without asking for payment, the stranger who offered a ride on a cold winter night. These moments, though small, had shaped his understanding of what it meant to belong to a community. As they continued, the conversation turned to the nature of prosperity. Lillian described the isolation she had felt in her youth, surrounded by luxury but longing for genuine connection. There is a kind of poverty, she said, that has nothing to do with money. It is the poverty of the spirit, the emptiness that comes from living without purpose or love. Victor nodded, thinking of the times he had felt adrift, searching for meaning in the routine of daily life. He realized that his greatest joys had come not from material success, but from the relationships he had built and the moments of kindness he had shared. What does true wealth mean to you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective might inspire someone else to see the world a little differently. The rain had nearly stopped, leaving the air fresh and cool. They reached a quiet intersection where the only sound was the gentle drip of water from the eaves. Victor and Lillian paused, taking in the stillness. For a moment, neither spoke, content to simply be present in each other's company. Victor glanced at Lillian, gratitude welling in his chest. Thank you for sharing your stories with me. I feel like I've learned more in this short walk than I have in years. Lillian smiled, her eyes crinkling at the corners. Sometimes, all it takes is a willing ear and an open heart. We are all students and teachers, Victor. Every encounter is an opportunity to grow. They stood together, two souls brought together by chance and kindness, each carrying the weight of their own histories, yet finding comfort in the shared journey. The world around them seemed to fade, leaving only the quiet connection that had blossomed between them. In that suspended instant, Victor understood that fate had intertwined his path with Lillian's for a reason he could not yet articulate, a reason that lay hidden in the interplay of humility, resilience, and grace. The last drops of rain kissed their faces as they approached a small house set back from the road. It was a humble dwelling, its exterior showing the marks of time. The paint was peeling in places, revealing the aged wood beneath, and ivy climbed the walls, partially obscuring the windows. Yet, there was a certain charm to the place, a sense of quiet dignity that resonated with Victor. The garden, though small, was carefully tended. Flowers bloomed in vibrant colors, their petals glistening with moisture, and a weathered wooden bench sat beneath the shade of an old apple tree. It was a place of peace, a sanctuary from the world. Lillian paused at the gate, her gaze sweeping over the house with affection. "Thank you for accompanying me this far," she said, her voice filled with genuine gratitude. "I'm afraid it's not much to look at, but it's home." Victor smiled, his eyes reflecting the warmth he felt in her presence. "It's beautiful, Lillian. It has character." He pushed the wheelbarrow up the narrow path leading to the front door, the wheels crunching softly on the gravel. The house seemed to exhale a sigh of welcome as if it had been waiting for their arrival. Inside, the house was modestly furnished, reflecting Lillian's simple lifestyle. A worn rug covered the wooden floor, its colors faded but its patterns still visible. A small sofa sat before a fireplace, its cushions plump and inviting. Books lined the shelves, their spines bearing the marks of countless readings. It was a room filled with memories, a testament to a life well lived. Lillian carefully began to remove the items from the wheelbarrow, placing each object on a small table near the fireplace. She handled them with a gentle reverence as if they were precious artifacts. Victor watched, intrigued by the assortment of oddments. There was a chipped porcelain doll, its painted face cracked but its eyes still bright. A stack of yellowed letters tied with a faded ribbon. A tarnished silver locket, its surface engraved with intricate designs. Each object seemed to hold a story, a secret waiting to be revealed. After she had emptied the wheelbarrow, Lillian turned to Victor, her eyes shining with warmth. "Would you like to come in for some tea?" she asked. "It's the least I can do to repay your kindness." Victor hesitated for a moment. He had other tasks to attend to, errands to run, people to help. But there was something about Lillian's invitation, a genuine sincerity that he couldn't resist. "I would be honored," he replied. Lillian smiled, her face lighting up with pleasure. "Please make yourself comfortable," she said, gesturing to the sofa. "I'll put the kettle on." Victor settled onto the sofa, sinking into its soft cushions. The room felt cozy and inviting, filled with a sense of peace that he rarely experienced in his own life. He gazed around, taking in the details of the house. Faded portraits hung on the walls, their subjects gazing back at him with knowing eyes. A grandfather clock ticked softly in the corner, its pendulum swinging with a steady rhythm. The air was filled with the scent of old books and herbal tea, a comforting aroma that soothed his soul. As Lillian prepared the tea in the kitchen, Victor could hear the clatter of pots and pans, the murmur of her voice as she hummed a quiet tune. He felt a sense of contentment wash over him, a feeling of belonging that he had not expected. Lillian returned with a tray bearing a teapot, 2 cups, and a plate of small biscuits. She placed it on the table before the sofa and gestured for Victor to help himself. "You know," she said as she poured the tea, "not many would stop long enough to care about an old woman and her wheelbarrow. In a way, you honor the simple truth that sometimes kindness is its own reward." Victor accepted a cup of tea, his cheeks warming with the sincerity of her words. "I only did what felt right," he replied. "We're all part of the same community, aren't we? Each of us contributes a part, however humble it may seem." They sat in silence for a moment, sipping their tea and enjoying the quiet companionship. The rain had stopped completely and sunlight streamed through the lace curtains, casting dancing patterns on the walls. Lillian glanced at a framed photograph on a side table, her expression softening with a wistful smile. "That was taken many decades ago," she murmured. "I learned then that sometimes our most cherished memories are not defined by the opulence around us, but by the heartfelt moments that shape our very soul." Victor followed her gaze, studying the photograph. It showed a young woman, her face radiant with joy, standing in a garden filled with blooming flowers. He could see a resemblance to Lillian, but there was a vibrancy in the young woman's eyes that seemed to have faded with time. He wondered about the story behind the photograph, about the life that Lillian had lived. He sensed that there was more to her than met the eye, that the modesty of her dwelling and the simplicity of her lifestyle concealed a past filled with extraordinary chapters. If you're enjoying this story and want to see what happens next, subscribe to this channel for more tales of kindness and transformation. Your support helps us bring these stories to life. As they continued to talk, Victor found himself drawn to Lillian's wisdom and grace. She spoke of the importance of living with intention, of finding joy in the small moments, and of cherishing the connections that bind us together. Her words resonated deeply with him, reaffirming his belief in the power of kindness and the value of human connection. It was in those quiet moments, amid the steam of freshly poured tea and soft, candid confessions, that a quiet truth began to take shape. Victor realized that, sometimes, destiny concealed its grandest secrets beneath layers of humility and simplicity. And as he sipped his tea, an unspoken question began to form within him. Who was Lillian Caldwell, truly? What profound narrative lay hidden behind that unremarkable exterior? The rain had long since faded, leaving Rosewood washed clean and glistening under a gentle sun. The town's familiar routines resumed, but for Victor, something had shifted. He moved through his days with a sense of anticipation, as if the world had grown more mysterious overnight. The memory of his walk with Lillian lingered, coloring his thoughts and making the ordinary seem charged with new meaning. At the local diner, the usual morning crowd gathered for coffee and conversation. The clatter of cups and the aroma of fresh pastries filled the air, but the talk was different now. Whispers drifted from table to table, each voice adding a new layer to the story that had quietly taken root in the town's collective imagination. "Did you see Victor with that old wheelbarrow?" one woman asked, her tone a mix of curiosity and admiration. "I heard she's lived here for years, but no one really knows much about her," replied another, lowering her voice as if sharing a secret. The speculation grew with each retelling. Some wondered if Lillian was a distant relative of a famous family, while others suggested she might have once been a celebrated artist or a world traveler. The truth, it seemed, was just out of reach, and the mystery only made her more fascinating. Victor, for his part, tried to ignore the attention. He went about his work as usual, helping neighbors with their chores, tending to his small garden, and sharing quiet moments with friends. Yet, he couldn't shake the feeling that something important was unfolding just beyond his understanding. He found himself reflecting on the nature of appearances. How often, he wondered, do we judge others by what we see on the surface? How many stories go untold because we fail to look deeper? He thought of Lillian's gentle wisdom, her ability to find meaning in the smallest gestures, and realized that true wealth could never be measured in bank ledgers or material possessions. One afternoon, as Victor was repairing a fence for Mrs. Gable, he noticed a stranger walking down the lane. She was a woman in her 30s, with sharp eyes and a purposeful stride. She carried a leather-bound notebook and wore a press badge clipped to her jacket. Victor recognized her from the local paper, Miranda Alvarez, a journalist known for her thoughtful reporting and genuine interest in the lives of ordinary people. Miranda approached Victor with a friendly smile. "You must be Victor Delgado," she said, extending her hand. "I've been hearing quite a bit about you and your recent act of kindness." Victor shook her hand, feeling a bit self-conscious. "I just did what anyone would have done," he replied. Miranda's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "That may be true, but not everyone would have taken the time. I'm working on a story about Lillian Caldwell. Would you mind if I asked you a few questions?" Victor agreed, and they sat together on the porch, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the yard. Miranda's questions were gentle but probing. She wanted to know about his impressions of Lillian, the details of their walk, and the stories she had shared. As they talked, Miranda revealed that she had been researching Lillian's past. "There are rumors," she said, "that she once moved in circles reserved for the influential. Charity galas, private dinners, meetings with people whose names appear in the news. But then she seemed to vanish from that world, choosing instead a life of quiet solitude." Victor listened, intrigued by the idea that the woman he had helped was more than she appeared. He thought of the objects in her home. The locket, the letters, the photograph, and wondered what secrets they held. Miranda spent the next few days interviewing others in the town. She spoke with the cafe owner who had seen Victor and Lillian pass by, the mail carrier who remembered their conversation, and the elderly man who had nodded in approval as they walked together. Each person added a new piece to the puzzle, painting a picture of a woman who was both familiar and enigmatic. The whispers grew louder. At the market, people speculated about Lillian's past, their imaginations running wild with possibilities. Some said she had inherited a fortune and chosen to hide it. Others believed she had once been a powerful figure who had given it all up for a simpler life. One evening, as Victor was watering his garden, his neighbor Mr. Daniels approached. The old man leaned on his cane, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "You know, Victor," he said in a low voice, "word is that Lillian Caldwell isn't who you think she is. Some say she's left behind a fortune that even the richest folks in the city would envy." Victor looked at Mr. Daniels, surprised by the certainty in his tone. "Why would someone with so much choose to live so simply?" he asked. Mr. Daniels shrugged. "Maybe she wanted to find out who her real friends were. Or maybe she just got tired of all the noise." That night, Victor sat by his window, watching the stars appear one by one. He thought about the town's fascination with wealth, the way people measured success by what could be counted or displayed. He wondered if society's fixation on money had blinded them to the things that truly mattered: kindness, honesty, and the courage to live authentically. The days passed, and the anticipation in Rosewood grew. Miranda's investigation had stirred something in the community, a sense that a revelation was on the horizon. The town council called a meeting at the community center, inviting everyone to attend. The hall was filled with residents, their faces a mix of excitement and apprehension. Miranda stood at the front, her notebook in hand, ready to share what she had learned. She began by recounting the events of the rainy day, the act of kindness, the shared stories, the quiet dignity with which Lillian had lived. She spoke of the rumors, the interviews, and the evidence she had gathered. With each detail, the room grew quieter, the weight of her words settling over the crowd. Finally, Miranda revealed the truth. Lillian Caldwell was, in fact, a reclusive billionaire. She had spent years giving away her wealth through anonymous donations, supporting causes that mattered to her, and helping those in need without seeking recognition. She had chosen to live simply, not out of necessity, but as a deliberate act, a way to preserve her integrity and connect with people on a genuine level. The reaction in the hall was immediate. Some gasped in astonishment. Others exchanged glances of admiration or envy. A few shook their heads in disbelief, unable to reconcile the image of the modest woman with the reality of her hidden fortune. Victor sat quietly, absorbing the news. He felt a sense of clarity, as if a puzzle he hadn't known he was solving had suddenly come together. He realized that Lillian's true wealth had never been in her bank account, but in the way she lived her life, with humility, compassion, and a steadfast commitment to her values. As the meeting ended and people filed out into the night, Victor lingered, lost in thought. He remembered the walk through the rain, the stories shared over tea, the wisdom in Lillian's words. He understood now that her choice to live modestly was not a rejection of her past, but a celebration of what truly mattered. His earlier experiences with Lillian had shown him that wealth was not an end in itself. Her choice to live as she had, to shun the trappings of her fortune and lead a life of quiet dignity, underscored a philosophy that was profound. Real value lay in experience, empathy, and the capacity to make others feel seen. The days following the town meeting brought a new energy to Rosewood. Conversations in the bakery, at the market, and along the shaded sidewalks shifted from idle gossip to thoughtful reflection. The revelation about Lillian Caldwell's background had sparked something deeper. A collective pause, a willingness to reconsider what truly mattered. People began to share their own stories, moments when a neighbor's kindness had made a difference, or when a simple gesture had lifted a heavy heart. The focus moved away from speculation about Lillian's fortune and toward the values she embodied. The town, once content with surface-level judgments, now found itself engaged in a quiet examination of dignity, generosity, and the meaning of a well-lived life. Victor moved through these days with a sense of calm. He continued his routines, helping Mrs. Gable with her garden, repairing fences, and greeting children on their way to school. Yet something had changed within him. Each interaction felt more significant, each conversation more sincere. He found himself listening more closely, offering encouragement, and noticing the small ways people cared for one another. He often recalled his conversations with Lillian, her words echoing in his mind. True riches are measured not by the golden tokens one accumulates, but by the warmth of love and the legacy of compassion one leaves behind. That simple truth had become a guiding principle for him, shaping his choices and deepening his appreciation for the community he called home. The initial flurry of attention from outside Rosewood gradually faded. Reporters and curious visitors lost interest as the story moved out of the headlines. What remained was a town changed not by scandal or spectacle, but by the quiet influence of one woman's example. Lillian herself remained a gentle presence. She continued to live in her modest home, tending her garden and visiting the library. She declined invitations to speak at large events or accept public honors, preferring instead to offer guidance in small, meaningful ways. When asked about her decision to live simply, she explained, "I choose this life because it allows me to see people as they are, not as they wish to be seen." Authenticity is a gift both to ourselves and to those around us. Victor and Lillian's paths crossed often, sometimes at the market, sometimes during community gatherings. One afternoon, the town held a small event at the community center, a potluck supper where everyone brought a dish to share. The atmosphere was warm and unpretentious, filled with laughter and the aroma of home-cooked food. During the meal, Victor found himself seated beside Lillian. The conversation turned to the changes in Rosewood, the new sense of unity and purpose that had taken hold. Lillian listened, her eyes bright with satisfaction. In a world that often equates luxury with worth, I choose to remind myself and those I encounter that integrity and love are singular assets that can never be bartered. Victor nodded, understanding the depth of her conviction. He realized that her influence had reached far beyond the boundaries of her own life, inspiring others to look inward and value what could not be bought or sold. As the evening drew to a close, Victor reflected on the journey that had brought him to this moment. He remembered the rainy day when he had first met Lillian, the walk through quiet streets, the stories shared over tea, and the gradual unveiling of her true self. Each step had been a lesson in humility, courage, and the enduring power of kindness. The town, too, had changed. People were more patient, more willing to help, and more likely to see the good in one another. Acts of generosity became commonplace, not because of Lillian's wealth, but because of the example she had set. Children learned from their elders, and elders found renewed purpose in guiding the next generation. In that moment, the entire journey, the rainy day, the long walk through Rosewood, the tea in a modest sitting room, and finally the unfolding of the town's secret, became a unified lesson in humility, courage, and the transcendent power of kindness. As seasons turned, Rosewood continued to evolve, the memory of the rainy day and Lillian's revelation becoming woven into the very fabric of the town. The initial excitement subsided, replaced by a deeper, more lasting understanding of what it meant to live with purpose and compassion. Victor, inspired by Lillian's example, became even more involved in the community. He volunteered his time at the local school, mentoring young people and sharing his belief in the importance of kindness and integrity. He helped organize community projects, bringing neighbors together to improve the town's parks and public spaces. His actions, born from a genuine desire to make a difference, inspired others to follow his lead. Rosewood as a whole began to re-examine its values. The community center hosted discussions on aging with grace, living simply, and finding fulfillment in ways that had nothing to do with material possessions. People shared their personal stories, their struggles, and their triumphs, creating a space of honesty and support. Miranda Alvarez, the journalist who had first brought Lillian's story to light, returned to Rosewood periodically. She chronicled the town's transformation, writing about the quiet acts of generosity, the renewed sense of community, and the enduring spirit of its people. Her articles, published in newspapers and magazines across the country, helped to spread Rosewood's message of hope and compassion. Lillian remained a constant presence in the town, offering quiet guidance and support to those who sought her counsel. She continued to live in her small house, tending her garden and welcoming visitors with a warm smile. Her life, a testament to the power of humility and authenticity, served as an inspiration to all who knew her. One spring morning, as cherry blossoms bloomed throughout Rosewood, Victor sat beneath a tree in the town square, reflecting on the journey that had brought him to this moment. He remembered the soft murmur of Lillian's voice, the subtle hints of her remarkable past, and the realization that a person's worth was not determined by outward appearances but by the quiet heroism of everyday actions. In that reflective solitude, he vowed to remain true to the values that had been reaffirmed on that day, to serve with humility, to cherish the intrinsic worth of every individual, and to let kindness be the compass guiding his journey through life. In the years that followed, Rosewood flourished, not because of newfound riches, but because its people embraced a deeper understanding of what it meant to be truly wealthy. Kindness became the currency of the town. Neighbors looked out for one another, and small acts of generosity became part of daily life. The story of Victor and Lillian was retold at family gatherings, in classrooms, and during community events, serving as a gentle reminder that compassion could transform lives. Lillian's home, with its ivy-clad walls and welcoming garden, remained a place of comfort for many. Visitors often stopped by, seeking her wisdom or simply enjoying a cup of tea in her peaceful kitchen. Her presence was a quiet reassurance that living simply and authentically could bring lasting fulfillment. Victor's influence continued to ripple through Rosewood. In the community center, a modest plaque was installed in his honor. It read, "To those who remind us that the greatest treasures are found in the warmth of a generous heart." The plaque became a symbol of the values that now defined the town. Teachers began to share Victor and Lillian's story in ethics classes, encouraging students to reflect on the meaning of true wealth. Children grew up hearing about the rainy day that changed everything, learning early that kindness and integrity were the foundations of a good life. Thanks for watching. Look at our channel to watch another inspiring story from Grandora Stories. And don't forget to subscribe for more. As long as the gentle autumn rains would fall upon the cobbled streets of Rosewood, the spirit of that day would remain etched in every smile exchanged, every helping hand extended, and every heart that chose to believe in the timeless value of kindness and human connection.